Hi, Aries. Welcome to Pandora Astrology's monthly horoscope for February of 2020. Well, it's a month when a lot of planets are going to be moving out of Capricorn, your 10th house, and Aquarius, your 11th house, and into your 12th house of solitude. So you may find that you want to spend some time on your own. But boy, when that coincides with a month that is so relationship oriented, partially because we've got Valentine's Day, but also because Juno is going retrograde, then relationship is going to assume a really big importance. And Julia has some thoughts about this. Hey, Julia, would you tell us all about what's up with relationships this month for Aries?
Oh, sure, Jamie. A lot is going on. I'm going to talk about Venus, which is the planet of love, but also we're going to look at an asteroid called Juno, which is also a very major relationship part of astrology, because Juno represents our long-term relationship needs versus Venus, which shows how we fall in love and
Mm.
how we express affection. So they're similar in that they're both relationship oriented, but they do serve two separate functions. And Juno is going to be having a retrograde this month, so it's really important that we focus on her, especially because it's Valentine's Day coming up soon.
Yeah.
So first, I'll start with Venus, that planet that represents love, art, beauty, how we express our feelings, where we find pleasure.
Mm.
So Venus is going to leave the place of seclusion in the beginning of the month, which is your 12th house, and then she's going to move into your first house on February 7th. And the first house is the house of self. So that means that you're really going to be embodying Venus energy this month. And since Venus is the planet of beauty, this means it's going to be a really great time for beautifying yourself in some way. Like, for example, you might want to try out a new hairstyle or go shopping for a cool outfit. But it's a very fortunate transit in terms of anything you'd like to do to sort of impress or express your beauty physically. And it's also a good time for dating, also, because you're going to be looking a little extra cute and agreeable as well. Now, Juno, which is the asteroid of marriage and partnership, and that can be romantic partnership, it can also be business partnership too. However, she's going to go retrograde in the sign of Libra in your seventh house, which is a partnership house, on February 8th. And during times of retrogradation, we're kind of asked to review and evaluate the theme of whatever planet is retrograding. So for Juno in the seventh, this means that your long-term relationships, like marriage, because it is a fairly romantic house, is really going to be coming under review.
Mm.
And so that means if you're in a long-term relationship, you may be rethinking what your needs are and whether they're getting met the right way. And if you're not in a long-term relationship, then you might be reviewing your past relationships and thinking about what needs to be different in your next relationship so that you can move towards a happy partnership life.
Mm.
And then what's also interesting this month is that Venus and Juno are going to be opposing each other on February 25th. So this means that a confrontation is likely going to take place in these matters. Venus in Aries is really concerned with what your needs are as an individual, your romantic needs, and Juno in Libra, shows us what your needs and whether they're being met in partnership. So you may feel some tension between how you love as a unique individual and what you need in a partnership to be long lasting and sustaining and really fulfilling for you.
Mm.
Now, the other planet I'm going to be talking about is Mars, the planet of action and activity. And Mars starts off this month in your ninth house of long journeys, adventure, and higher learning. So that means you might be putting more effort into these areas because wherever we have Mars is where we see the most activity in our chart. So you may be planning some faraway trip or striving to learn something to expand yourself. And Mars can be also a bit stir crazy too. So a challenge this month might be feeling comfortable in the presence, whatever present situation you're in. And you might feel like sort of breaking free of whatever you think might be oppressing you in some way, which can kind of bring up a very stir crazy vibe. Then Mars goes into your 10th house of career on February 16th. So that means that after that date, you're going to be driven to work hard on your professional life. And you can get a lot done during this transit, but Mars isn't exactly the best team player either. So you might be better off doing work on your own if you can do that at all at your job. And also, since Mars can be a little bit feisty and conflict prone.
Mm.
Just be careful of not getting into fights with your superiors at work too. And what's going on this month with Mercury and the lunations, Jamie?
Yeah, a bunch of stuff. I'm going to go back to February 3rd because that is when Mercury enters Pisces. So Mercury spent last month in Aquarius, which is a great place for Mercury to be. It loves to be there. And moving into Pisces is a bit of a challenge because Pisces is a sign that really brings some, um, awakens the imagination and it opens up intuition, but it is not very aligned with Mercury's basic thing of being rational and logical. So when rational Mercury tries to do its communication and thinking thing through the sign of Pisces, it sometimes, generates some confusion. So there's that. Added to that is the fact that Mercury is going to go retrograde on the 16th. So let's see that happen. And here it is. You can see it's beginning to station. And here it goes retrograde. And it's definitely retrograde by the 17th. And so we're entering a Mercury retrograde period. And this is something that I think is always good to know about before it happens. When Mercury goes retrograde, it usually spends about 3 weeks that way, about every 4 months. So for most of the time, really about 3 months out of every four, Mercury is moving forward at a good pace. And we can set goals, we can set deadlines, we can make plans, we can design projects in the expectation that they will go forward in a good way. But when Mercury does go retrograde, all of that is up in the air, up for grabs, a total mystery. It's not a good time to make long term plans, to begin projects, or to expect to make deadlines. It's a much better time while Mercury is retrograde to clean up old projects, to clean out your closets. And you might even find that you're on a forced break from office work and from writing because office machinery has a tendency to break down. Communications don't go well either because, emails and letters get lost or because people's communication is literally garbled and they're having a hard time getting their ideas across, kind of like I am right now with my throat. Sometimes the medium is the message. So Mercury will be retrograde through the rest of the month and into next month. And after it's done is when we'll begin picking up the pieces. You can find out a lot more about Mercury retrograde in a video that I'm going to show you in the YouTube description below. Not a video, but on a webpage that I have all about Mercury. But I just wanted to mention that because this is a sort of a double whammy for you, Aries, it's in the 12th house as well as being in Pisces, I think that you should be extra cautious and really draw on your compassion and your capacity to understand the other person that you're communicating with, because I think it's going to be extra muddy this month for you in particular. Now that Mercury retrograde is going to line up with the new moon on February 23rd. And let's see that happen. So here's the new moon in Pisces in your 12th house, and Mercury is there as well. And it's just going to be, I think, a very emotional new moon, even though a new moon is usually more solar in its nature. Wow. Mercury's kind of got me, huh?
Aww.
So I think that this new moon is going to be a time when you're going to want to hide out, Aries. You're going to want to pull the covers over your head. You're going to want to retreat and take some solitude, perhaps some well-earned solitude, and just gather your thoughts. So that would be a really good way to spend that new moon, which is happening on the 23rd. And that kind of also lines up with another thing that's happening this month that I think is really important. It's happening on February 20th, and that is the date when this year's connection, a sextile between Jupiter and Neptune begins. And this is going to be really sweet and I think really helpful and supportive for humanity in general. Jupiter is in Capricorn right here. And Neptune is in Pisces right here, and they form the first of three sextiles coming up this year, right here on February 20th. And this is going to be a great mood for us this year, which is really about having our greater compassion, our spirituality, if you will, lining up with our, you might call it our religious experience. And I think that our ethics are morals. And when your deep compassion, which can't really be limited by an organized religion, and your religious sense itself, when they line up, then what you have is a beautiful experience of faith, a really unshakable faith and hope, and a sense of possibility. And so Jupiter will be in Capricorn for this in your 10th house, which means that you're in a career luck year. You've probably heard that before in a video from me. And Neptune in the 12th says that your imagination will be supporting that career luck. So it's a really great year for visioning what is possible in your career and having the faith to do something about it. The one last thing I want to mention is that there is a full moon earlier in the month on February 8th. And that one is a full moon in Leo. And you can see it right here. The sun is in Aquarius. The moon is in Leo right there. And this is going to be quite social for you. Full moons are also times that have to do with partnership. So it may add to some of those themes that Julia was talking about and be part of the lead-in to Valentine's Day and the relationship retrospective that's happening around Juno Retrograde. And it's going to involve balancing your ego with what your friends think of you. So it's a really good time to shine, but in a way that is socially appropriate. And there's that full moon on February 9th. So I think that's all we have for you. A little bit longer video today because there's so much to talk about here this month in February. But yeah, I think we said everything we needed to say. And I hope that you have a wonderful month. And you should definitely check out the news videos that are in our February 2020 playlist on our YouTube channel, Pandora Astrology. And till next month, we'll see you around the cosmos. Bye-bye.
Bye.